My husband gave his mother keys to our house and she came whenever she wanted. She was already inside when Adanna woke up. Not knocking, not calling, already inside, moving through the kitchen the way water moves through a familiar crack. The sound of pots shifting, the low hum of a song Adanna did not recognize, the smell of palm oil heating before 6 in the morning, before the sun had fully decided to rise, before Adanna had even opened her eyes to face another day in a house that no longer felt completely hers. She lay there a moment with her eyes open and her hands flat on the bedsheet, listening. Emeka was already gone, she could tell, by the cold on his side of the mattress, by the absence of his breathing. He always left early on Thursdays. Sales meetings, or so he said. The thought arrived quietly, and she pushed it away. She got up, she wrapped herself in her house robe, she walked to the kitchen doorway and stood there. And Amma Ngozi did not flinch, did not look up, did not pause the song she was humming. She simply said without turning around, "Adanna, there is no crayfish in this house. How does a woman keep a house with no crayfish?" That was the first time. Adanna told herself it was love of her son. But love does not arrive every Tuesday and Thursday and sometimes Saturday. Love does not move the furniture and say it is for better arrangement. Love does not eat your husband's dinner and explain that she taught him to prefer his egusi with more water. Love does not rifle through the bedroom wardrobe looking for a fabric she said she left there during the wedding and then hold up your private things and say, "What is this for?" By the 4th visit, Adanna had begun to count. By the 6th, she had begun to feel a low vibration in her chest that she did not have a word for. Not quite anger, not quite fear, something older and quieter. The feeling of a woman who has begun to understand that the walls of her home have ears that belong to someone else. By the 10th visit, the one that happened in the middle of a fight, when Adanna and Emeka were in the sitting room with their voices raised and the air between them was tight and hot with old things, by that 10th visit, everything shifted. Amma Ngozi did not knock that time either. She never knocked. The key Emeka had given her, without asking Adanna, without even mentioning it until Adanna found the spare key missing from its hook, that key turned smoothly in the lock and the door opened, and Amma Ngozi stood in the entrance and took one look at the scene and said to Emeka, "What is she doing to you?" Not "what is happening," not "are you two okay," not even "good evening." What is she doing to you? And Emeka, who 5 minutes earlier had been raising his voice, who had said things to Adanna she had not yet decided how to store in her body, that same Emeka sat down, rubbed his face, and said, "Mama, I'm fine. She's stressing you. I can see it on your face. Come and sit." And he went. He actually went and sat beside his mother on the sofa and let her put her hand on his back the way she used to when he was a small boy, and he visibly softened, and Adanna stood there in her own sitting room, feeling herself become invisible in a way that had no violence in it, but wounded all the same. She went to the bedroom. She locked the door. She sat on the edge of the bed, and she held her stomach with both hands, because there was something growing there. Something she had known about for 3 weeks and had not yet said out loud to anyone. Something that changed every calculation, every plan, every version of the future she was holding. She had not told Emeka. She had not told her mother. She had not told her best friend Chisom, who would immediately begin to plan a baby shower and not understand why Adanna was not smiling. She had not told anyone because she did not yet know what she wanted to do with the knowing, and she could not figure that out while Amma Ngozi had a key to her door. Now, before we go further, and we will go much further because this story has rooms inside of rooms, I need you to understand something about Emeka. He was not a cruel man. That is the complicated thing. He was not the kind of man who hits, who screams, who controls through terror. He was the kind of man who loves his mother with a devotion so total it has never once questioned itself, who was raised by a woman who sacrificed, and there was real sacrifice, do not let anyone tell you otherwise, and who has converted that sacrifice into a debt he is still paying. He did not see what Adanna saw. Or rather, he saw it differently. When Adanna said, quietly on one of the early evenings, "Emeka, your mother came again today without calling first," he heard, "My mother is not welcome," and he could not receive that message without closing something in himself. She is my mother. This is my house too. Two true things that together made a wrong thing. That is the precise kind of logic that can quietly destroy a marriage. Adanna had tried to explain it. She had tried more than once, in more than one way. She was not saying his mother couldn't visit. She was saying a phone call first. She was saying a conversation about boundaries. She was saying, I also live here. I also need to feel that this is mine. Emeka heard it each time as an attack. He would go quiet in the particular way that men go quiet when they have decided not to fight, but also decided not to hear. And then he would carry his phone to another room, and she would hear him calling his mother, and she could not make out the words, but she could feel the shape of the conversation. It was always him talking and his mother listening, and whatever Ama Ngozi said in return always seemed to strengthen something in Emeka that needed Adanna to be the problem. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, because stories like this one do not come from a simple place. They come from real human darkness. Stay with it.
Now here's the first thing you do not yet know. Adanna knew Mama Ngozi before she married Emeka. Not as herself, not directly, but she knew of her. She knew the name. She had heard it spoken in a voice low with old feeling in a house she visited as a girl in a town 3 hours from Lagos. Her mother's sister, her Auntie Philomena, whom everyone called Auntie Phil, had a story she told only once, and only after 2 small glasses of something strong, about a woman who cost her a marriage, a woman whose son was marrying someone else's daughter, and whose interference ran so deep that the girl had packed and left before the first anniversary. The woman in the story was named Ngozi. Adanna was 12 when she heard it. She had filed it the way children file adult stories, somewhere behind more urgent things. She had not connected it when she first met Emeka's mother at their introduction ceremony. People carry common names. The world is full of Ngozis. But sitting on the bed with her hands on her stomach and the sound of Mama Ngozi's voice filtering under the door, something broke open in her memory. Something cold and slow. She opened her phone. She found Auntie Phil's number. She did not call, not yet. She stared at the name for a long time. The next morning, Emeka left for work before she woke up again. He did not wake her. He did not leave a note. This was new, a silence he had started deploying since the argument, since his mother had arrived and recalibrated his version of events. Adanna lay in the quiet and felt the specific loneliness of sharing a bed with someone who is conducting a slow withdrawal. She got up. She made tea. She stood at the kitchen window. At 9:30, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost did not answer. Adanna. The voice was Mama Ngozi's. Calm, the way a river is calm in the part where it is deepest. Adanna said nothing. I know you are there. I can hear you breathing. A pause. I want to talk, woman to woman. Come and have lunch with me today. Adanna, Mama, I will text you the address. Come at 1 o'clock. Not a question. The line went quiet. Adanna looked at the phone. She knew she should not go. She knew the way you know not to push a door that is vibrating. She went. The restaurant was in Victoria Island. Small, expensive, the kind of place that signals money without trying. Mama Ngozi was already seated when Adanna arrived. She was wearing a deep burgundy lace with a head tie wound low and deliberate. She was a handsome woman. Adanna had always been willing to admit this.
striking in the particular way of women who have never once doubted their own authority. She did not stand when Adanna sat. She smiled, though, that controlled smile that did not travel past her mouth. "You look tired," she said. "I'm fine." She poured water from the jug on the table. She pushed a glass towards Adanna. "I ordered already. I hope you don't mind." Adanna minded. She said nothing. "I want to tell you something," Mama Ngozi said. She folded her hands on the table. Her rings caught the light. Heavy gold, layered, real. "I am not your enemy. I never said you were. You didn't have to say it." She looked at Adanna the way certain older women look at younger ones, not unkindly, but from a very great height. "I have watched how you look at me when I come to the house. I have watched the way your mouth goes when you are holding something back. You have been holding something back since the wedding." Adanna said carefully, "I only asked for a phone call before visit. And I have heard that. I hear it differently than you mean it, but I hear it." She paused. "What I am trying to tell you today is that your battle is not with me." Something in Adanna shifted. What does that mean? Mama Ngozi unfolded her hands. She picked up her water glass. She looked out the window at the street for a moment, and for the first time, Adanna saw something move across her face that was not control, something old and unresolved. "Emeka's father," she said, "was a man who gave me nothing. No faithfulness, no honesty, no stability." She set the glass down. "What he gave me was Emeka, and I raised that boy in the ruins of a marriage that was destroyed not by me, but by a woman who smiled in my face and went through my husband's phone." She looked back at Adanna. "So yes, I hold on to my son. Yes, I am present. Yes, I have perhaps taken too much space in a house that is also yours. But understand that I am a woman who lost everything once, and I will not lose my son." The food arrived. Neither of them moved toward it. Adanna said quietly, "I am not trying to take your son." "Then why," Mama Ngozi said, "does he call me every night to tell me what you said to him that day?" The silence after that sentence was enormous. Every night. He calls every night. She had thought the calls were occasional. She had thought the pipeline between Emeka and her mother was a matter of weekends and visits and the low hum of family obligation. She had not known that it was nightly. She had not known that her husband was reporting to her mother like a man who has not left the house he grew up in, who has built a new house on top of the old one and brought his wife into a space that was never actually redesigned for her. When she got home, she sat in the parked car for 11 minutes. Then she took out her phone and called Auntie Phil.
Philomena Okafor. Her aunt picked up the way she always did. Formal first name and surname, like answering the door of herself. "Auntie Phil, it's Adanna." "Adanna, how are you, my dear? How is that husband of yours?" "Auntie Phil." A pause. "Do you remember the story you told me once about a woman named Ngozi? You said she destroyed a marriage. You said her son was marrying." Silence on the line. Then, where did that come from? "I need to know who that woman was, the full story." Another silence, longer. Adanna could hear her aunt's breathing change rhythm. "Adanna?" Her aunt's voice had dropped. "Auntie Phil, please, tell me the story properly." The story, as Auntie Phil told it then, slowly, reluctantly, stopping and starting and saying, "God forgive me for speaking ill," at intervals, was this. 28 years ago, Auntie Phil had been engaged to a man named Tobichukwu. They were young. She loved him with the sharp, consuming love of early adulthood. His mother was a woman named Ngozi from Newi, a small, stout woman with a large presence and a deep certainty about who deserved her son. That woman had decided within months of the introduction that Philomena was not the one. She did not say this directly. She operated through channels. She moved through her son's life, slowly shifting his perception, reframing every disagreement, planting small doubts that bloomed into large ones. After 9 months, Tobechukwu had ended the engagement. He said he had realized they were not compatible. He said it in a flat voice that did not sound like his. He could not look at Auntie Phil when he said it. She had never recovered fully. She had married someone else eventually, a kind and decent man, but she had never forgotten. Tobe's son is getting married next year, she said. I heard from someone. His son's name... Adanna's fingers went cold. His son's name is Emeka. The pause was the loudest thing Adanna had heard in years. What did you say? Auntie Phil said. She sat with it for 4 days. 4 days of Emeka coming home and eating and watching his phone and being present in the body but absent in every other sense. 4 days of waiting for the door to open and Mama Ngozi to walk through it. 4 days of carrying the thing in her stomach and the thing in her chest and the thing in her memory, and all of it together felt like a weight she was not certain she could hold. On the 5th day, she called Chisom. I need you to come, not tomorrow, today. Chisom arrived in 40 minutes with Chinchin in a bag and the capacity to listen that had always made her different from other people. She sat on the sofa and she listened without interrupting, which cost her, I could see it. And when she finished, she was quiet for a long time. So your husband's grandmother destroyed your auntie's engagement. That grandmother is now your mother-in-law, and you are pregnant. Yes. And you haven't told Emeka any of this. No. The pregnancy or the other thing? Either. Chisom pulled her knees up. Adanna, do you love him? I don't know who I married. That's not what I asked. Yes, quietly. Yes. I love him, but I don't know if I can live in this. I don't know if the man I love is actually available to me or if he's still living in his mother's house in his mind. And the pregnancy? Adanna looked at her hands. I need the locks changed. I decided that much. Whatever else, I need to change the locks before I decide anything. I need one thing in this house to be mine. She called the locksmith the next morning. She chose a time when Emeka was at work and gave no explanation to Mama Ngozi because she owed none. The locksmith came and she watched him work, and when he was done and he handed her the new keys, 2 of them, only 2, she held them both. She did not tell Emeka. She waited. She waited 3 days, and on the 3rd day, Mama Ngozi arrived at 11 in the morning, and her key did not work, and she knocked for the first time in the entire history of her visits. And when Adanna opened the door, the 2 women looked at each other across the threshold. Mama Ngozi's face did something complex and controlled. My key is not working. I changed the locks. A long pause. You changed the locks. Yes. Did my son know? This is also my house. They stood looking at each other. Her hands were steady. She was surprised by this. She had expected herself to shake. May I come in? Mama Ngozi said. Not what is the meaning of this. Not how dare you. May I come in? Said carefully in a different register than anything Adanna had heard from her before. Adanna stepped back and let her in.
They sat. No food this time. No performance of hospitality. I know who you are, Adanna said. I know who your first husband was. Mama Ngozi's eyes did not move. Explain what you mean. Tobechukwu, your ex-husband, your son's father. Adanna's voice was level. Before he married you, he was engaged to my mother's sister, Philomena. A very long silence. You ended that engagement, Adanna said. Not directly, but you ended it. Mama Ngozi looked at her hands, her rings, heavy and layered. She was quiet for so long that Adanna wondered if she would say anything at all. Philomena, she said finally, not a question, just the name held in the mouth like something old. Yes, she has spoken to you. She told me what happened. Mama Ngozi raised her eyes, and what Adanna saw there was not the cold control she had been expecting. It was something weathered and complicated and unresolved. What she told you, she said quietly, is her version, which I cannot argue with. I did what I did. I was a young woman and I was afraid and I did what I did. A pause. Tobe left me anyway, 10 years later. So you see, God has a particular sense of humor. This isn't about your marriage, Adanna said. It's about mine. I know. You walked into my home the way you walked into your own. You took space that was not offered to you. You went to your son every single night, and you built a wall between us without ever touching a stone directly. And I, her voice for the first time, moved slightly off its level. I am carrying his child, and I have not told him because I cannot decide how to bring a baby into a house where the door belongs to someone else. The room was very still. Mama Ngozi's face was doing things that her face had not done before, not in Adanna's presence. There was something breaking open in the older woman, slowly, the way ice breaks in a warming river, in stages, with sound. "You are pregnant," she said. "Yes." Another long silence. Then Mama Ngozi pressed her fingers to her mouth. It was such a small gesture and so human that Adanna found herself unprepared for it. She had prepared for battle. She had not prepared for a woman suddenly becoming comprehensible. "I did not know," she said softly. "He did not tell me." "He doesn't know." The older woman looked up. "Why not?" And Adanna said the truest thing she had said in months. "Because I needed to feel that this was mine first, mine and his, not ours and yours, not the family's, mine and his." Her voice did not shake, but it was very close to shaking. "I needed one lock that you did not have a key to before I told him we were bringing someone new into the world." The silence after that lasted a very long time. Now, and this is the part of the story where everything you thought you understood is not wrong exactly, but is smaller than what is real. Now we arrive at what Mama Ngozi did next. She did not argue. She did not call Emeka. She did not reach into her bag for a new strategy. She reached into her bag for a handkerchief, which she pressed to her eyes, and she said very quietly, "I owe your auntie an apology I have been too proud to give for 26 years. Adanna said nothing. "And I owe you an apology for the space I took without permission." She folded the handkerchief. Her hands were slightly trembling. Up close, she was older than she appeared from the distance at which she usually operated. She said, "I have been afraid since Tobe left. I have been afraid that every woman near my son would take him somewhere I could not follow. I did not handle the fear well." A pause. "I still am not handling it well." "I see that," Adanna said. "I know you see it. You are a precise woman, a ghost of something that was almost admiration. Emeka does not see it. He only sees his mother who loves him. He cannot see past that." "That is also a problem," Adanna said. "Yes, quiet. That is also a problem, and that one you will have to take up with him." She told him that night, both things in order. She sat down with him after dinner, which she had made and which they had eaten in the careful silence that had become their normal, and she said, "I need to tell you two things. I need you to not speak until I finished both." Emeka put his fork down. She told him about Auntie Phil first, about the connection she had discovered, about the conversation with her mother that afternoon, about the apology that had been given in a quiet room with a folded handkerchief. She watched his face move through stages, disbelief, then something searching, then a deep discomfort that was not the same as guilt, but its neighbor. Then she told him about the baby. He was very still for a moment that lasted too long. Then his face broke slowly, like the opening of something that had been sealed too tightly, and she saw the man she had married, not the one his mother had partially claimed, but the one she had originally chosen, surface through the years and the calls and the closed doors. "Adanna," he said. She held up a hand. "I am not done." "Okay. I changed the locks. I am not changing them back. If your mother wants to visit, she can call first and I will answer or I will not. But she will not walk into this house again with a key that I did not give her. She looked at him. This is not a negotiation. This is me telling you what is. He was quiet for a moment. Then he broke slowly. Did, Adanna, you talked to her today? Yes. She called me after. She said she owed me an apology, but that she needed to give it to you first. The surprise of that moved through Adanna like something warm. She also said, Emeka continued slowly, that I call her too much. You call her every night. I know. I didn't realize I was doing it as much as I was doing it until she said it to me. He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't realize a lot of things.
And here is where I must tell you what did not happen. Emeka did not transform overnight. He did not become a different man by morning. The patterns built over 38 years do not dissolve in one evening because a woman in a quiet room finally said what was real. He still reached for his phone at night. He still called his mother more than was healthy. He still sometimes heard Adanna's concerns through the wrong filter. But he put the phone down more. He stayed in the room more. He looked at her directly in a way he had been slightly avoiding for months. And in that looking, she could see that he was trying to see her properly. Mama Ngozi did not come unannounced again. She called. The first call was short and slightly stiff and full of pauses where old pride was being physically restrained. But she called. And when she visited the following Saturday, she knocked. She stayed for 3 hours. She and Adanna sat in the kitchen and did not become friends. That is too large a word and would require more time and more honesty than they had yet built. But they sat and they cooked. And Mama Ngozi told a story about when Emeka was 7 and afraid of the dark, and used to carry a torch everywhere, even in daylight. And Adanna laughed genuinely for the first time in the older woman's presence. It was a very small thing, but small things are what a house is made of. Before this story closes, there is one more piece. Auntie Phil. 2 weeks after the changed locks, after the dinner conversation, after the Saturday visit, Adanna called her aunt back. She wants to call you, Adanna said. Mama Ngozi. She wants to apologize. I'm not telling you to accept it. I'm not telling you how to feel about what she did. I'm only telling you that she asked. Auntie Phil was quiet for a very long time. She is your husband's mother, she finally said. Yes. And you are carrying her grandchild? Yes. Another long silence. Then, tell her she can call. She did not say she would forgive. She said the woman could call. That is all she said. And perhaps that was enough for now. A door left not open but unlocked, which is a different thing and sometimes all we can offer each other across the ruins of old wounds. Adanna is 5 months now. The house is still hers. She knows it in a different way than she did before. Not because everything has been resolved, not because the marriage is repaired and the family is at peace and all the old bones have been given proper burial, but because the lock is hers, because the door opens on her terms, because when the key turns, it is a key she gave or chose not to give, and that distinction, as small as it sounds, as small as a piece of metal, as small as the difference between turning and knocking, that distinction is everything. There are still nights when Emeka's phone glows after midnight, and she knows he is typing to his mother, and she feels the old low vibration in her chest. There are still mornings when she wonders how deep the roots of old patterns go, whether she and Emeka will find a shared language before the baby arrives, or whether the baby will simply add to the weight already being carried. There are still things unsaid between her and Mama Ngozi, 26 years of Auntie Phil's grief, and the question of whether a woman who once used love as a weapon can be trusted with the soft new life coming, the life that will call her grandmother.
These things do not vanish. They do not dissolve because a conversation happened or a lock was changed or an apology was offered in a quiet restaurant or a kitchen. But Adanna has discovered something. She has discovered that she is a woman who will not become invisible in her own house. Not quietly, not slowly, not through the accumulated weight of small intrusions. She is a woman who will change the locks when the locks need to change, and sit at the table when the sitting needs to happen, and say the true thing when the true thing has been held long enough. She does not know how the story of her marriage ends. Nobody who is still living in a story does. But she knows the door is hers now. And for today, for this particular morning, with light coming through the kitchen window and a child moving in her belly for the first time, and Emeka in the other room, awake, calling his mother less, trying harder, still flawed and still hers. For this morning, the door being hers is enough. It is not a happy ending, but it is a true one. And sometimes that is the harder gift. If this story stayed with you, if you felt something move in your chest somewhere along the way, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We tell stories here that do not look away. We will be here next time.